Today we're talking about visionary concept and comic artist Jean Giraud, better known as Moebius. It just blows my mind. Like, his work just blows my mind.
Wow.
Moebius revolutionized comics and graphic novels.
He was very quick.
His influence is huge. He created the look and feel of some of the most recognizable fantasy worlds ever put on the page or on film.
So this Moebius guy was some kind of big deal, huh?
From Western comics to sci-fi comics and everything in between, this guy can do it all.
Superhuman.
He has to channel something from another world, and the Incal has been described as a contender for the best comic book in the medium's history. Best comic book in the medium's history. It's part space opera, part spiritual journey, part satire, part noir.
European.
Silver Surfer parable.
I am Galactus.
I put myself in a trance-like state so that something may come through. It boggles my mind. It boggles my mind.
You want to be a Moebius girl?
Yes, I do. I'm a Moebius girl. Hey guys, I'm Comic Book Girl 19, and welcome to Greater Creators. Henri Gaston Giraud, better known as Moebius, revolutionized comics and graphic novels. And in fact, in France, they call him the Pope of comics.
The Pope?
My first experience with the art of Moebius was found in the pages of his comic book, The Incal. The thing that struck me the most about his artwork was how it looked like nothing else I've ever seen before. It's so effortlessly drawn, the quality of his lines are so perfect, it seems like he just scribbled them down in 5 seconds, and yet every single character is naturalistically posed with really amazing styling going on. And not only that, he puts them in these really amazing environments that create this altogether unique atmosphere. And he's able to draw anything, from Western comics to sci-fi comics and everything in between. This guy can do it all.
Can he draw rocks?
He can draw rocks like nobody's business.
Rocks are really hard.
They are, actually. It seems like it'd be easy, but it's not. And that's all of Moebius's work. It seems like it's so simple, but it's not.
So this Moebius guy was some kind of big deal, huh?
Yes, Robot. Moebius is kind of a big deal. His influence is huge. He created the look and feel of some of the most recognizable fantasy worlds ever put on the page or on film. He designed many of the sets for Disney's Tron in 1982 and the look of the Nostromo crew members in the sci-fi horror classic Alien. Also, the worlds of Blade Runner and The Fifth Element are all but ripped from the pages of Moebius. Honestly, it just blows my mind. His work just blows my mind. I just can't even when I'm reading it. And this is maybe something that people who don't draw, may not pick up on or may not understand. But it's just the fact that every single figure in his works are naturalistically posed, and just little things in the background. It's just it's such a complete friggin' world that he creates that it boggles my mind. It boggles my mind. I don't know how he's able to draw everything from cowboys on horses to alien plants that look crazy to spaceships to everything else, and I want to live in the world that he draws, okay? I've always said I want to live in Blade Runner world, and Blade Runner comes from him. So really, I just want to live in his world.
You want to be a Moebius girl?
Well, that's The Fifth Element. It's do you want to live in the Fifth Element world? Because that's Moebius world. And everybody loves Fifth Element world. Everybody loves Fifth Element world. And that's Moebius. Now let's take a look at some of my favorite works by Moebius. Now, I realized in preparing this show that some of my favorite works of Moebius are in collaboration with some of my other favorite writers and directors.
Oh yeah? Like who?
Well, first up, you have Moebius teaming up with the writer of Alien, Dan O'Bannon, for The Long Tomorrow. This short comic seems to have been the launching pad for a lot of other creative projects. The two met together while working on Jodorowsky's Dune in 1975, and in their spare time, because they weren't always working on the movie, O'Bannon wrote this story and Moebius illustrated it.
What's The Long Tomorrow about?
The Long Tomorrow is a noir story about a detective in dystopian future city where androids and shapeshifters are the norm. And it is considered one of the first cyberpunk stories ever told. Originally published in 1976 in Heavy Metal magazine, the comic book was a favorite of Ridley Scott, who loved the vertical designs of the futuristic city. and the comic became a key visual inspiration for the look of Blade Runner. The look of The Long Tomorrow would also inspire fellow Grader creator Alejandro Jodorowsky when the two collaborated on the comic The Incal, which launched Alejandro's Yodaverse set in the exact same landscape.
Jodoverse?
The Yodaverse. And it is interesting to note that this comic is still inspiring Ridley Scott some 40 years later in his movie Prometheus. The look of the man in the comic, entwined with the tentacles of a shapeshifter, looks mighty similar to Ridley's engineer being impregnated by the ginormous mutant facehugger. At least in my opinion.
Oh yeah, they do look similar!
Jean Giraud was born May 8, 1938 near Paris. He was raised by his grandparents after his parents divorced when he was only 3. By age 15, he'd sold his first story, and by age 16, he was enrolling in art school. Before he was even 18, Giraud was drawing Frank et Jérémie for Far West magazine starting in 1956. Later, Giraud spent 9 months in Mexico with his mother, who'd relocated after she'd married. He then returned to France for military service, during which time he drew for a military newspaper while stationed in Germany and Algeria. In early 1961, he apprenticed for Belgian artist Joseph Guillain, and the two of them worked on the Western strip Jerry Spring together. This led to his best-known comic strip Blueberry with Pilot magazine editor-in-chief Jean-Michel Charlier. The first Blueberry story, Fort Navajo, debuted in Pilot number 210 in October 1963. Blueberry was a Western about a U.S. cavalryman named Mike Donovan, an anti-hero nicknamed Lieutenant Blueberry. And in France, this comic was just as popular as The Avengers was in America. 1963 was the same year that Giraud first used the alter ego Moebius. His work in Pilot was signed Jur, but in the obscure satire magazine Harakiri, he wrote 21 strips as Moebius. Jur and Moebius started to blend into the same persona by 1973. Moebius was a co-founder of Metal Hurlant, which literally translates as howling metal, an anthology magazine collecting sci-fi and horror comics often characterized by an overtly erotic bent. It was first published in America as Heavy Metal, and the dreamy and esoteric Arzach originated in Metal Hurlant and remains one of Moebius's best-known characters.
Wow, Moebius founded heavy metal?
Yes, Space Brain, and this is where the Moebius persona became the dominant one. In a rare quote on the subject, he reportedly once said, "Going from Giraud to Moebius, I twisted the strip, changed dimensions. I was the same and yet someone else."
He was not only an artist with the incredible capacity, but he was very quick. Was superhuman.
And Heavy Metal was also where he presented the Airtight Garage and in the 80s, the Incal. It makes sense, of course, that he attracted the attention of surrealist and self-described psycho-magician Jodorowsky, who famously tried to adapt Frank Herbert's Dune in the mid-70s. As chronicled in the documentary Jodorowsky's Dune, the Chilean director's version would have been something like 14 hours long. Though that version of Dune stalled when the money dried up following 2 years of pre-production, the entire process laid the foundation for many brilliant things to come. Moebius was part of Jodorowsky's creative team, which also included Chris Foss, H.R. Giger, and visual effects supervisor Dan O'Bannon. But after Dune collapsed, O'Bannon dreamed up a story for a movie he called Star Beast. Director Ridley Scott enlisted O'Bannon's doomed Dune collaborators H.R. Giger and Moebius to work on the characters and set designs for what became 1979's Alien. Jodorowsky and Moebius would later reunite on the comic The Incal, a dystopian intergalactic adventure tale full of philosophy and spirituality against the backdrop of rebels, rogues, and aliens. Moebius describes his relationship with Jodorowsky as the most personal and complex association of his career, and The Incal has been described as a contender for the best comic book in the medium's history.
Well, what's the Incal about?
Fair warning, robot, The Incal is weird and completely unique. It's part space opera, part spiritual journey, part satire, part noir, following the adventures of the unlikely hero, Class R detective John DeFool, who lives in a futuristic dystopian city inside a giant hole on an insignificant planet in the human galactic empire. The whole thing starts innocently enough, with John taking a job to protect a beautiful woman and make sure she's home by midnight, which leads to him accidentally receiving the light Incal, a crystal of enormous spiritual power, from a dying Berg, which is an alien from a neighboring galaxy that looks like a featherless bird. The Incal is then sought by several factions: the Berg, the corrupt government of the Pit City, a rebel group called Amok, the Techno-Priests, and Anima, the original keeper of the Light Incal. John reluctantly joins with a group of fellow spiritual warriors on a quest that takes them to the ends of the universe, fighting an all-devouring darkness that threatens the existence of everything and puts John face to face with the ultimate being.
That's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff. It's very European. It's not like a normal story. It's not normal storytelling, okay? But it's awesome and you should treat yourself.
European.
One of the things I love about the Incal is how Moebius draws John de Fool, who is based off the Fool card in the Tarot. Now, the Fool card is essentially an archetype that's open to experience and like symbolizes all potential. And the thing in the comic is the lower John's motives are, the uglier he looks. But when he's possessed by the purifying power of the White Incal, he's drawn as this like beautiful Adonis, and it's just like so cool. Like I love it. I love it. It's great.
Is that a representation of his higher self as opposed to his lower self?
Yes, Space Brain, you're absolutely correct.
You don't even know what you're talking about.
Fun fact, if you want to read the Incal, you're gonna have to spend some money because this thing is going on Amazon for like $100 right now. It's not cheap.
Never mind that.
It's totally worth it. Hollywood continued to enlist Moebius for his concepts, and there are plenty of visual parallels between Moebius's storyboards for Dune and Star Wars. George Lucas eventually hired Giraud for the fantasy tale Willow. He also worked on Disney's Tron and James Cameron's The Abyss. As well as the live-action adaptation of Masters of the Universe.
Wow, Moebius worked on Willow? Not so much Masters of the Universe.
Fun fact, the only awesome thing to come out of that Masters of the Universe movie, which is terrible, is that awesomely designed golden helmet thing that Skeletor's wearing at the end. That thing's awesome. Though Giraud worked on The Fifth Element, Luc Besson's movie bore so much resemblance to Giraud's earlier material that some accused it of blurring the line between inspiration and duplication. Jodorowsky and Giraud unsuccessfully tried to sue Besson, claiming the movie borrowed too much from their comic The Incal. The lawsuit's failure was partly pinned on the fact that Moebius had actually worked on The Fifth Element prior to the plagiarism allegations being made. And my final example of great Moebius art is Silver Surfer Parable. This was in collaboration with none other than Stan the Man Lee.
Stan Lee?
After moving to Hollywood in 1988, Moebius met Stan Lee at a comic book convention. They decided to have lunch, and over this lunch, a friend suggested that they collaborate on some kind of Marvel comic together, which was a first for Moebius. Look, a shooting star.
No, dear, it's too close. Probably a satellite or something.
The sound is deafening!
Oh, we're doomed! It's bigger than a mountain! Something is coming out!
I am Galactus.
Silver Surfer Parable is all about Galactus coming back to Earth, right? And like, he's sworn this vow to like not eat the Earth because that's what he does. He's like this giant dude that came from before the Big Bang that like survives off of like the energy of living planets.
Wow.
And so he really wants to eat Earth, okay? Like he really wants to, but like he said that he wouldn't. So he has this trick plan where he comes down and he declares himself God. And he's like, hey guys, you can do whatever you want. Pleasure is like the deal now. Don't worry about laws.
In return for your homage, I bring you a new era.
So he's essentially trying to get humanity to destroy itself so then he can eat the planet.
Oh, that tricky Galactus.
But unfortunately for Galactus, his former herald Silver Surfer is living on Earth as a homeless man, and when he sees what's going on, he's like, I'm not gonna let Galactus get away with this. So he comes out of hiding, and he attempts to stop Galactus and his evil plot.
I knew you would come.
This was Moebius working for the first time in the Marvel method, where Stan would outline a story and leave lots of room for creative interpretation by the artist. This particular method worked great for Moebius because it gave him a lot of room to interpret the story graphically, even making up some of his own dialogue and even lettering the thing himself. This story is also said to be some of Stan Lee's best writing. Readers loved the book. It has a great story and art that lifted it beyond most comics of its time. And in fact, it won the Eisner for Best Miniseries in 1989.
What's the Eisner Award?
The Eisners is like the Oscars for comics, robot.
Oh, like the Academy Award.
Yeah, I've been to the Eisners.
Well, aren't you special?
Yeah, I talked to a lot of comic book artists. Moebius said about Silver Surfer Parable, "I found the story wonderful. It's full of personal and philosophical considerations, which I think are very, very interesting. In fact, I found it a rather sad and dark story, but at the same time, it is cast in a different light." What makes Moebius a greater creator is the fact that he puts all of himself into his drawings. He has to channel something from another world, and has even stated, "I put myself in a trance-like state so that something may come through." And this is consistently said by many of our greater creators, that they are not solely responsible for their ideas alone, but that they come from another place. Stephen King has said that he doesn't think of his ideas, but that they're already out there, and it's up to him to uncover them. Alan Moore says that he taps into something that he calls the idea space. The thing about art is that there's a spiritual component to it. You don't just draw or paint or write or compose. To be a greater creator, you have to become a vessel. And as Jean Giraud once stated, it is the artist's duty to smash down the systems that domesticate the mind. Moebius passed away in Paris on March 10th, 2012 at the age of 73. Though he'd long battled cancer, his friends remembered him drawing right up to the end. All right, class, now it's time for your homework assignment. Be sure to check out the comics publisher Humanoids, who are responsible for releasing new editions of a bunch of Moebius collaborations with Jodorowsky, including the Incal. Also, look out for his collaboration with Stan Lee in Silver Surfer Parable, and check out the 2014 documentary Jodorowsky's Dune, which makes a strong case for the collective influence of everyone involved on future franchises, including Star Wars and The Terminator. Join us next time on Greater Creators, where we're going to discuss the works of other amazing creators who influenced generations. Class dismissed.